Okay, and here we are in part B of this lecture. The first thing I wanted to mention was that you notice that the steps in the scientific method are very similar to the steps that any person, even a child, would use in learning about life, even from the earliest age. You make an observation, you think a little bit about why did that happen, and what would happen if I tried it again in a slightly different way. You test your theory by actually trying it again, maybe in a slightly different way, and you see what happens. And you use that knowledge to refine your hypothesis about why it happened. Whatever happens the second time, you use that information to come up with a better hypothesis about why things happen, and so on and so on and so on. And that's exactly the way that we learn things. The scientific method is just a more formalized approach to that sort of thing. The actual exact steps in the scientific method aren't set in stone, and different people will, different sources will list the steps a little bit differently, but it's essentially the same idea. You keep testing your hypothesis and refining it and refining it and refining it until it basically describes every relevant situation. And then usually it comes to be called a theory or a law, depending on what it's about and how simple it is. The outcome of successful application of the scientific method can be a scientific law or principle. A scientific law is actually a statement of a predictable relationship between two or more physical quantities. And hang on just one. Okay, it's scientific law is a relationship between two or more physical quantities, and scientific laws tend to be relatively simple. So like the law of conservation of mass in chemistry, it just means that when you have a chemical reaction, you have to, the total mass of the products has to be the same as the total mass of the reactants. And so that's a pretty simple, relatively simple, straightforward relationship. And so laws do tend to be relatively simple and straightforward, and also very well accepted. There are several ways that you can express a scientific law. And one of them, of course, is in words. One would be a mathematical equation. Sorry. Another would be a model, say a computer model or a mathematical model or even a physical model of a situation. Or a graph.